There's something powerful about choosing to continue. It's powerful to me because it is personal. No one can know what it feels like to struggle and then decide to continue. No one can know what it feels like to take each step and persevere despite what it feels like. It may look to others like there is motivation and desire to continue, but it doesn't feel like that. Endurance is hard. Persevering is hard. And although you may look at others and think they have a great will and desire to keep going, truthfully, to them, it couldn't feel less like that. Endurance has a way of stripping things back. It's simple. It is just the act of moving forward one step at a time, grounded in the process rather than the outcome. It is required that the person who endures remains present and doesn't think of how tired they are or how far they have to go, but simply the task that is in front of them, right here, right now, and again, right here, right now. And somewhere along that path, for the one who endures, gratitude appears. Gratitude for the chance to struggle, to learn, to keep going. I don't think, as it may seem to others, that to persevere is a test of self-worth. I think it's an expression of being alive. Hello, welcome back to That's Runnable. Or maybe welcome for the first time. I'm your host, Tommy. It's just me today. And today, we're talking, it's about time, about the Vietnam Trail Marathon 70k that I did a couple of weeks ago. I like to do a bit of a race recap every now and then, once I've done a race, to really dig deep into what went down and what we can learn from my mistakes, but also just generally my experience of the race. So we'll be doing that today. We'll be going into my training a little bit, and we'll be going into the preparation and the race itself, and just reflecting. We'll be reflecting on everything that went down. So stay with me if you want to hear about what went down in Vietnam. But before we get started, I have a little announcement to make. I'm going to be relaunching my one-to-one coaching. So far, I have, under the brand of That's Runnable, released the Coaching Hub. And the Coaching Hub is still there, and it's growing, and there's a new intake on the first Monday of every month, and you can join. You can reserve your spot now for the Coaching Hub. The Hub is a program. It's a full running and strength program, but it's also a full library of resources. So you'll get an app. You'll be able to dig deeply into that library of resources. And you do have access to me as your coach, as someone on a private one-to-one chat, so we can come back and forth. But the programming is there to just assist you in your own training and help you basically maintain and learn how to maintain a consistent and sustainable running practice in your life, both with strength training, mobility, and all that good stuff, and running, and to do it the right way. But now I am offering a one-to-one coaching experience. I am only opening this up to a few spaces. My time is limited, and I want to make sure that I really work well with these individuals. This is deeply personalized coaching. I'll be forming a deep and strong relationship with that individual. And it is for ultra runners or runners who are wanting to do their first ultra or crazy challenge. There will be a commitment of 3 months with my one-to-one coaching. And it's for people who are really wanting to sort of level up that commitment to their ultra running, to their running in general, to become an ultra runner, and really committed not only to their own training, but their overall journey as a runner. I really want to work extremely closely with some individuals to really help those individuals with their running, but also their approach to their running, and make sure that whether they stay with me for years to come or just for a few months, they can take everything they learn from me and from our work together and apply it to their training, to their racing, and to their life. If you're interested in my one-to-one coaching offer, the link is below. You can go to that link, read about it, and then apply, and I will come back to you with more information and we can work out whether it's the right fit for you. So if you're interested in my one-to-one coaching, go to the show notes, check out the offer there, fill in the details, why not? And then I'll get back to you. I also want to talk about Innovate, the sponsor of this episode. I have been supported by Innovate for some time now. This podcast has been supported by Innovate for some time now. I absolutely adore Innovate. I love the company, I love the people behind it, and I love the products. I won't be talking all that much about the gear I used for Vietnam Trail Marathon, but I will say I was wearing the Trailfly Maxes. These are my go-to shoes now, either the Trailfly Maxes, or if I know it's going to be a muddier day, it would be the Trail Talon Maxes. I absolutely love the Max version of their shoes for longer distances. I also am training in the regular Trailflies. I just love their shoes. They've got a wider toe box, a minimal sort of drop. They're solid. They have a really solid upper. A lot of trail shoes out there, man, they're just sort of road shoes with a few lugs on the bottom. That's not how you make proper trail shoes. Innovate know how to make proper trail shoes. They hug my feet. My heel doesn't slip. To the extent that I don't even have to do the laces each time. I mean, some people might think that's mental, but I just slip them on and sorted. Love the Trailflies, love the Trailfly Maxes. Big fan. I was also wearing an Innovate race pack, and I've fallen in love with the Innovate race pack. I was using a different race pack beforehand, and I just love the systems on the Innovate. I'm still sort of getting used to new systems with the Innovate race pack, but I've made that shift because it loads from the top. So there's no zip involved. And what that means is that, like, if let's say you're on a really long ultra and you're sort of into the night or it's raining or something like that, I can very quickly reach to the back and grab whatever's at the top. It might be that I have my waterproof at the top. I can just pull that out. In the same vein, I can just take my waterproof off and shove it into the top of my race pack. It's genius, it's quick, it's efficient. I am a big fan of the Innovate race pack. So that's what I was using. Two highlighted products from Innovate that I was using for this race. Bit of a long ad for you there, but we are sponsored by Innovate for this episode. Go to innovate.com, INOV8.com. Use the code RUNNABLE, which should now be working. If not, use the code RUNNABLE26 for 15% off anything you get. Innovate.com, INOV8.com. Thank me later. Okay, so today we are talking about the Vietnam Trail Marathon. I did the 70K. This race is part of a series here in Vietnam, the Vietnam Trail Series. And there are a few races, some beautiful races in different parts of the country. Today we're talking about Vietnam Trail Marathon. There were different distances. I think there was a 10K, a 21K, a marathon, and a 70K. Don't think I've missed a distance there. Lou, as it happens, was doing the 21K and had an amazing day. You'll hear in a second how mine was the opposite experience. And it was just such, I just want to start by saying it was just such a well put on event. So well put on. We had a bit of a package deal, so we had a lift from Hanoi on the bus and traveled over. The whole experience was just top class. Done a bunch of these ultras now, and I'm always judging how the event is put on. And I tell you what, I will say that this was probably the best put on ultra I have been to, and that is saying something. And I've done UTMB events, and they're big. So big fan. So I want to just start by thanking David, the race director, for bringing us along and for allowing us such an amazing experience. It was just so well put on. So thank you to Vietnam Trail Marathon. If you're interested, go and check out Vietnam Trail Marathon online. You've got the Vietnam Jungle Marathon as well, and then the Mountain Marathon. They're happening all year round. If you're ever in Southeast Asia, if you're in Vietnam, check out when it's happening. I'll link it below. So today we want to go through a bit of background on some of the preparation, some of the training, and then we'll go into the race, and then I will just basically tell a story of how it went. And as I tell that story, I will highlight some of the things that I did well and did badly, and then we'll have a bit of a summary at the end. And hopefully there'll be lessons for you to learn in this episode. So settle in. Let's get started. So let's talk about my training. If you have listened to the podcast and you've listened to episode 71, you'll know there was a bit of background in terms of my internal monologue and what was going on in my head as it relates to sort of my passion for trail running and ultra running. And I had sort of lost it a little bit. And I don't want to just repeat that whole episode. You can go back to episode 71 if you're interested in hearing about where my head was at as it relates to kind of my interest in the sport and all that sort of stuff. But I just simply lost interest in my running. I felt overexposed to the sport. I felt like I was sort of speaking about and thinking about and training and all these things. It was all running. And I was doing other things. I was freediving in Dahab. I was enjoying my time with friends, and I wasn't training enough. So I want to go into this and just say off the bat, I was undertrained. And I am not as fit as I could have been. I was not as fit as I could have been for this race. This is normal. Our interest in running, as I often say, can ebb and flow. Our interest is not always high, sky high. We're not always loving the sport, and that's okay. That is okay. And for me, that's where my head was at. When I was supposed to be peaking, I was in Dahab freediving. So I had a lack of training going into the race. And that is probably the main thing. Everything else I mentioned throughout this episode, everything else in the next sort of half an hour or so that I mention, is on top of the main thing, which is a lack of training. Everything else is on top of the main thing, which is a lack of training. The work works. So I want to stress this from the start. You may hear throughout this episode what sounds like a bunch of excuses, a bunch of things where I'm like, well, this went wrong and this happened to me and this is this and this is that. There's a difference between excuse and reason. I am not going to be telling you which is my fault and which isn't my fault throughout. You can probably take that. You can make a guess yourself what was my fault and what I could have controlled and what I had no control over. But there are many reasons why this race didn't necessarily go completely to plan for me. And some of those could have been mitigated. Some of those could have been controlled. One of those things, the main thing, was the fact that I was undertrained. I was going into a 70-kilometer mountain race undertrained. I do not condone these actions. I do not recommend doing what I did. Okay? No ultra is to be underestimated. Whatever the distance, you may be someone who has done long races. You may be fit enough to do a 100-mile race. No ultra is to be underestimated. And I was not underestimating this ultra. I was going in knowing that 70k is serious. It was about 3,000 meters of elevation gain. It was going to be in a climate I wasn't used to. So I wasn't underestimating it. But I did know that I was undertrained. And that's not good. We don't want to be undertrained. So a few days before the race, Lou and I took a flight from the UK to Hanoi in Vietnam. Now, all around, the trip is about 20 hours. It's about 20 hours of flying, and that's a long trip. I am not someone who can sleep very well on airplanes. It's not fair, but it is the fact. I cannot sleep on planes. I just really struggle with it. So I'm sleep deprived and disrupted. I maybe got a couple of hours of sort of dozing, but nothing serious. And did you know, which I did not know, but did you know that the air in aeroplanes is really low humidity? This is what I researched anyway, when Lou found this out. So the air quality, or the air humidity, is really low in airplanes. So what that can do is, if you're on really long flights, we're talking like sort of 15-hour flights, it can really dehydrate you. I didn't know that. But a long flight is not just going to disrupt your sleep, is my point there. It is actually going to affect how dehydrated you are, how hydrated you are, and it will actually affect your body and how it is reacting to stuff. So going in a little bit dehydrated here, a lack of sleep, we're changing time zones as well. So if you travel for your races, it's important to recognize that if you're changing time zones as drastically as this, that is going to be very disrupted. Even if you are sleeping for the whole night, or if you feel like you're sleeping for the whole night, the quality of that sleep is going to be low. So we've got lack of sleep. We've got a change of time zone. We've got change of climate. We're going from London climate, which was sudden. I came from an Egyptian climate to the London climate to back to Vietnamese climate. 3 different climates there within about a week and a half. So my body is just playing catch up. So what are we doing, bro? What are we doing? Eventually, we got to Hanoi. Long bus journey from Hanoi to Mok Chau, about 5 hours. Beautiful, beautiful bus journey. As we were on that bus, we both remembered why we've come out here to Southeast Asia, why we've come out to Vietnam to try and spend as much time as we can here. It is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Truly. And eventually we got to Mok Chau and we were ready. We were at the hotel. We had one night in the hotel, and then the race was the next day. Nice and early start. We had some hotel food, which was nice. It was fine. Carved up. Of course, there's some risk there if you're not controlling the food you're eating. It may be that it's washed with tap water here in Vietnam, which wouldn't be ideal. So, we're adjusting. We're going from different climates. We're going different time zones. We're flying a lot, maybe dehydrated, coming in, eating food that's not completely under my control. Not ideal circumstances, undertrained. But I'll tell you what I felt strong with. I felt strong in the head. The time I'd spent not training in Egypt and elsewhere, I felt like I had it in the head. My head was in the right place. I felt grounded. And I felt like I wanted to really throw down. I wanted to go into this race and see what I was made of. I wanted to go into the race and maybe pace well for the first half, but then also just give it my all. I wasn't going to come to this race and just half-heartedly sort of, half-ass it. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to come in. I wanted to see what I had in the tank. I knew it wasn't going to be my best performance ever. I knew I wasn't the fittest I've ever been. But I was like, let's just see what happens. It's 70K. Let's see what happens. But I had it in the head. I didn't really care for the result all that much. But I did just care for finishing the race feeling like I had given it everything. And I think that's a good place to be in your head. So the evening came. I prepped all my stuff. laid everything out. I was ready. And now we're talking about the morning of. So it's race day. How do I prep for these races usually? Usually these races will start, they'll maybe be like a 6 a.m. start or something. Often, we'll have like a midnight start. But if it's a 6 a.m. start, I feel like I have a decent amount of time to eat, to go to the loo, and then start the race maybe 2 hours after waking up. If it's a midnight start, for example, like MIUT or Trans-Gran Canaria or other races, if it's a midnight start, starts in night ops, it's not ideal. You try and get some sleep maybe in the afternoon, but at least you then have enough time to eat well and give your body enough time to digest the food and to go to the loo before, and perfection. This race started very early. This race, the race brief was at 4:30 a.m. The race started at 5. I'm not getting up any earlier than 4. It's not happening. Perhaps I should have. Perhaps I should have woken up 2 hours before my race. Maybe that's a lesson learned. Maybe I need at least 2 hours before a race. But I woke up at 3:55, and I got up and I had breakfast. Now, usually I would have some oats or something like that. It doesn't matter too much what I'm having. I have something that I'm like comfortable having, something bready, some carbs, but not too much. Now, my last 2 races, I underfueled. Slovenia, Ultra X Slovenia, and Devil's Gulch 100, I believe I underfueled throughout the race. So if I'm being honest, I went into this race very scared of underfueling. I didn't want to underfuel. I wanted to eat well. I wanted to eat well before, and I wanted to be strict with my fueling throughout. So I had a breakfast ready, and I ate that breakfast. It was some bread and a banana and various bits. I think I ate too much too close to the start of the race. I think I was scared of underfueling, and so I think I ate too much too close to the start of the race. What I should have done is relied on the carbs I had the night before, the fact that my body had digested them, and I could have had maybe a bit to eat within the hour before, but not too much. I think I overfueled. Now, that coupled with the fact that I was probably dehydrated. I was drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot of electrolytes. I thought I was hydrating very well, but I think I probably was a bit dehydrated. After a flight, my bowels struggle to move a bit more. I think a lot of people struggle with this. If you've been flying, there's many reasons why this might be. One of them could be dehydration, but I wasn't easily going for a shit in the morning, basically. This is important stuff, guys. And so I went to the loo, but it just didn't happen, I had a small poop. And so I felt very full, and I felt like I hadn't really, flushed out the food I'd eaten. And I'd had the breakfast that was probably too big and filled up probably too much. So we're going into the race feeling a bit full, basically, and feeling like I'm going to have to rely on going to the toilet during the race. I'm going to have to rely on my running sort of encouraging bowel movements. And that was the plan. I'd go in, and maybe 10, 15K in, I'd need to go to the loo. So the start of the race comes. It's 5 a.m. Chemical Brothers is playing nice and loud. Push the button. What a tune. I've got that album on vinyl, actually. It's one of my favorite. It's actually the vinyl that Lou bought me, this vinyl. And when she bought me this vinyl, I knew she was the one. Anyway, tangent. Push the Button by... It's Galvanized, actually, on the album Push the Button by Chemical Brothers. That was playing to start. We kick off. Loads of excitement. So I got sort of caught up in that excitement, I think. And I went out at what I think is a regular speed for me to go out at an ultra of any, to be honest, an ultra of any distance, I would have gone out at this pace. I'm going to be frank. Others might say I went out the gates too quick. I think I went out the gates too quick, but I think I went out the gates at a pace that I thought I could sustain. But I think I went out the gates at a pace that basically my current self can't sustain. So a previous, a fitter version of me maybe was in a good state to do that. But I went out at a regular speed. Now, the reason I do that is it's sort of an attempt to position myself well so as to not get stuck on single file trails. I think at the start of the race, you want to make sure you're positioned well in the race so that you can just be not dragging behind someone or not be in front of people that are trying to get past you and that sort of stuff. So I wanted to be kind of up towards the front, so I had a lot of space to be on those single track trails. And so I sort of did push up to the front. I was probably in about 5th place. I'd probably maxed out about 4th or 5th place at the top, right? And I felt comfortable. But I think it was too fast for my current fitness. I was going at like a 4:30 to 5. It was like a 5 minute per kilometer pace, which is not crazy, but it's probably a bit quick for the start of a 70k. The humidity was relatively high as well. I'm not humidity trained. I've been training a bit here in Southeast Asia, but I'm just not ready for it. My body was undertrained. I felt quite hot. I thought my heart rate was elevated. I thought that was because excitement from the start of the race, a lot going on. You know, there was someone running out with a flame. You know, drones flying over, loads of excitement. I thought that was just the rush of the start. My heart rate had gone up, but it just didn't settle. And I sort of gave it like 5k to settle, but it just wasn't really happening. So the first 10k did not feel good. I didn't feel good at all, actually, ever. I didn't feel good ever. I felt pretty bad, and I was way too hot. But I was just waiting for my body to settle in. I think quite often at the start of these races, I feel like I am gonna settle in, and then like 10k in, I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel good now. I'm settling into the pace, and that just didn't happen. It was very up and down and up and down. It would climb up for 50 meters and then down for 50 meters and then up for 50 meters. It was a lot of elevation gain, all at night in the dark, and my body just wasn't feeling very good. And I was being stubborn. And I was carrying on at that speed, but I didn't feel good. And I was sort of waiting for my body to cooperate, basically. At that point, I was accompanied by Scott. Scott is an old colleague of mine, and by this point you will have heard the previous episode, which we did like a cross podcast episode with Scott. Great guy. He's an absolute machine. He is a beast, and not to be underestimated. And he was cruising. You know, he's been living in Asia for a while. He's been training out here. He's probably one of the most capable ultra runners in the region. And I'm just chilling with him, but he was taking this race very easy. This was a training race for him. So he was chilling with me, accompanying me, but truthfully, I felt awful. So the second 10k, you know, the course flattened out a little bit in the middle, and it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful race. The scenery, unreal. I don't have words in my vocabulary to express and describe to you how beautiful the scenery in Mok Chau is. It truly is stunning. And the sun rose, and it would be at this point that I would settle into the pace, but I still hadn't settled in. I was feeling awful, and my body was just feeling tired. And so I came into the second aid station, and I faffed around with gear. I was, I'd gone through some fuel. I have some Tailwind. So Tailwind is what I'm using for fuel. I love Tailwind. I've been where I can. I've been training with Tailwind. I had that Tailwind in the left and some electrolytes in the right. And so I took my soft flasks out and I thought I was getting ready, but I faffed around in the second aid station. I felt panicked. And I tell you what, I need to get my aid station efficiency up. I am so bad at that. I've always just been someone who's clumsy, who's not efficient with those sorts of things. And I think if there's one thing that can save me probably an hour during these races, it is aid station efficiency. I could save 5 minutes at each aid station and be a way better ultra runner. Aid station, eventually the half marathon mark came and I was feeling bad at this point. There is a video I made where I'm like, okay, real talk. I'm feeling bad. I was sort of holding out to really communicate how sick I was feeling at this point, but I was feeling incredibly sick and I was only 22K in. And the food was just not feeling good. I had a lump in my throat, a sick lump in my throat, and I just felt full and like the food wasn't going the right direction. It was wanting to come upwards and not downwards, and it just wasn't being processed. And I just knew that things were not feeling good. I knew I was going to be sick. So I started easing off. I started to just drop my pace and try and be a bit more strategic about the next chapter of this race. I had been pushing a bit too much at the start and I had felt sick. I had felt suboptimal. I hadn't settled into the race. I was waiting to settle into the race for my body to just adjust, and it didn't. And so the half marathon mark had come and I was feeling worse than I've ever felt 20K into any sort of race. So I had to just be like, right, ease off. And I let a few people pass me and they were going at the sort of clip I would want to be going at, but I just was feeling awful. But the scenery was great. It was all amazing surrounding me, but my body and me, my experience, not good. And then it was at about 22 to 25K in, maybe earlier, I was sick. I was very sick. And I was just retching and being sick on the side of the road for about 3 minutes. At that point, I didn't have the wherewithal to get my camera out, but I sort of started running again, got my camera out, my phone out, communicated that I had been sick to the camera, because I'm documenting this whole thing for social media, which is like a whole added challenge, to be honest. But I enjoy the process of doing that, so I'm not complaining. But it was quite funny because as soon as I mentioned that I have just been sick, a bike went past and I felt sick again, started being sick again. And this was just as I was coming into an aid station. And I got into that aid station. I was probably there for about 45 minutes. Now, with these races, if you've been sick, you really need to just stop and you need to slow down and you need to think about how you're playing this game now. So I went into the aid station. I tried to communicate to the medical team. I said, I've just been sick. They won't know that I'm looking far more pale and horrible than I probably usually do. Maybe they did. Maybe they looked at me and thought, yeah, you don't look great. I felt horrible. And I was at that aid station. I was sick again at the aid station. My body was just rejecting everything that I'd put in it. And I'd put in a fair amount. I was at the aid station. I tried to go to the toilet at the aid station and just couldn't. I was constipated. It just wasn't happening. And I took some meds from them. They gave me some sort of meds. They gave me a ginger tea. And then I started getting really cold. And I was at this aid station for about 45 minutes, I think. I was extremely cold. I had wrapped up in a foil blanket. And eventually I just wanted to keep moving. I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't able to really digest anything. They tried to offer me some brothy food, but I just couldn't. And I just thought, you know what? The next aid station is 5.6 kilometers away. I can make it there. If I make it there, then we'll see if I can digest anything there. So that was the plan. So after about 40 minutes or so at this aid station, I decided I'll put some more layers on and I'll just plod along. I did feel a lot better leaving that aid station. I felt a lot better leaving it than I did coming in. But I just wanted to keep moving and get to the next aid station. For the next sort of 5 kilometers or so, I was just running and trying to keep puke down, to be frank. I was running along and just trying to control myself, breathing quite, deeply and just controlling my body and trying to stop myself from puking. Horrible sort of state to be in, to be fair. I was retching a lot. I would come to the side of the road and I would retch, but I wasn't really being sick anymore. Nothing else was coming out. I think I was empty. I got to the next aid station. I made it to the next aid station. About 32k in now. 32k in. And I managed to have some fruit. I think if there's anything at an aid station that I'm definitely going to be able to eat, it's going to be the fruit. Give me some watermelon and I can scran that watermelon and it's probably going to stay down. So I took to some watermelon. I had some watermelon. I think there was some oranges and that felt good. To get something down, it felt good. Something fresh, something refreshing, something hydrating. Good. So that stayed down, but nothing was really appealing other than the fruit. So what's going through my head? What is going through my head in this period of time from about 22k to 32k, where everything is just going so badly? I've traveled to the other side of the world. I'm in Vietnam. I'm documenting the process. People look to me for advice, for coaching. Perhaps I am expected to perform well at these things. Tons of things are going through my head. I'm not saying any of these thoughts are legitimate or should be listened to. Actually, many of them should not have been listened to. Many of the thoughts that were going through my head should have been ignored. And I think one of the challenges of ultra running is to recognize what thoughts I should ignore and what thoughts you should not ignore and you should take heed on. The thoughts that I was not ignoring were look after yourself. Make sure you feel like you can keep going safely. Make sure you get the food down. Take your time and focus on getting food in your body. Those are the thoughts that were sensible. Thoughts that were not sensible. I'm not good enough. I'm weak. I'm an idiot for even going out too quick. Well, maybe that was actually a sensible thing to think. I'm going to fail. I can't do it. People are going to judge me for not being able to do it. I was actually going through a whole range of emotions, all sorts of battles in my head at this time. Apart from anything else, my body just felt really tired. And I was really looking at myself quite negatively, I have to say. But through it all, through the thoughts I was having with myself, the desperation, the negative narrative, thinking about how badly the race was going, somehow I was able to reframe what I was doing and continue. About a marathon in, my attitude changed. I was running through the most beautiful passes, the most stunning scenery. And I actually can't express to you. It is impossible for me to properly express to you how grateful I felt in that moment. You see, running has given me everything. It has saved my life. I genuinely believe I would either not be here or I would be a very different state if it wasn't for running, if I didn't have this pursuit in my life would be very, very different. And as I ran through the Mokchow Mountains with local children high-fiving me and running along with me, with picturesque scenery that you'd think would just be on a postcard. Every direction I looked was like the back of a postcard. And I felt deeply, deeply grateful for the gift of life. The fact that I'm able to do this stuff, the fact that I have the opportunity to do this stuff, the fact that I do this stuff in some way for a living. I felt grateful for everyone who supports me, who understands this journey, who understands that sometimes it doesn't go well. For you listening, the people that send in messages and say, I love this episode, or the people that like the episodes, or that like my social media content, or send me messages, or email me in response to a newsletter. All of these people, everyone who's ever supported me along this journey when it didn't feel realistic, I felt an unreal level of gratitude. I cannot express how thankful I am for the life I'm living. And in that moment, in the mountains of Mokchow, it all came rushing over me, and I wept. I wept. Moments before, I had been trying to hold in puke, suffering away. And then in that moment, I just felt pure gratitude and joy. It was unreal. And so from that moment on, it was about trooping on, no matter what. It became about enjoying the journey. It became about enjoying each stage from checkpoint to checkpoint. About the people I met. I met a guy called Hui, who I caught up with. He was suffering, and at the time he said to me, my legs don't have it in them. I don't believe my legs have it in them. And I said to him, bro, don't worry, man. It's just chapters. We got to go through this chapter. You got to just believe. You have to believe that you can do it. It's all in the head. We ran for a bit together. We went through a checkpoint. His wife actually was there at the checkpoint, and he didn't even know she was going to be there. And then a couple of aid stations later, I was sat there at an aid station, head in my hands, trying to digest some food, taking my time. And it was after a huge climb, proper steep ladder we were climbing up. And Hui came into the aid station just about a minute before I was going to leave. And he shouted to me and he said, I believe my legs have it. I believe my legs are strong. He went from not believing 20k before to now believing after an incline that his legs had it in them and he was going to finish the race. I met Claire, a 49-year-old ultra runner from Kent who travelled all the way out, had done the Arc of Attrition Marathon the week before, and she was trooping on. And every time I would pass her in the segment, and then I'd stop at the aid station and get the medical team to check me out, and I'd take my time at the aid station. She'd be quicker through the aid station, and she'd go on, and then at some point I'd catch up with her, and we'd have a chat, and then the same would happen. I'd see her at the next aid station. And we had a nice back and forth every time. I realized that being sort of a bit further back, more middle of the pack, is way better than at the front. We're all suffering together and enjoying it. There's no level of competition and competitiveness. But it just required pure grit. From then on, it was just grit. My body was now digesting food. I was able to have some fruit. I was able to start having some gels. My body was starting to act in a normal way, and I was able to keep taking on tailwind and all sorts of food. The medical team was seeing me at every aid station. They were giving me massages and sorting me out. But I had lost a lot. I was very fatigued. And as I said, I obviously was very undertrained, and I was cramping. I was cramping from about a marathon in, or maybe 35K in. Why do we cramp? A lot of people think that it's electrolytes. It's not just down to electrolytes. It can be a salt imbalance that can affect your likelihood to cramp. But really, as much as we know about cramping, this is a neuromuscular control and fatigue issue. So it's not electrolytes. It's multifaceted. Anyone who says that there's a simple fix to cramping doesn't know what they're talking about. First and foremost, I was undertrained. My legs could have been stronger. If they were stronger, they'd have dealt with the cramping. They would have dealt with the demand that the race had, and they may not have cramped as much. Second, it was poor pacing. I went out too quick. It was a hot day, more humid. My body is just using more energy. Poor pacing. Travel fatigue, as I discussed. We're talking about 20 hours of traveling, loads of lack of sleep. I'm fatigued generally. My body is just fatigued. There was sleep disruption, more fatigue. All these things are going to contribute to the likelihood that I'm going to cramp. I was ill during the race. I'd been sick. I'd lost everything that I'd put in there. And so, of course, when you lose all the nutrition that you have, your body is going to just feel very weak. You're going to feel unstable. You're going to feel drained. And all that stuff is going to affect this neuromuscular control or lack thereof. And individual susceptibility. I just cramp. I cramp. About 10 years ago, I was training for triathlons when I was at university, and I was doing a swimming session, and I was doing breaststroke. And during the swimming session, at the same time, I cramped in my left foot, my arch, then my right foot, then my adductor on my left, and then my calf on my right. So I had 4 cramps all happening at the same time as I was swimming. Almost drowned. I am just susceptible to cramping. So it happened. So I'm just battling through, trying to control cramping, trying to fuel up, trying to pace myself well, ease back, and just get to the finish. And what do? We got to the finish. I want to talk about the finish at this race. And this is directly to address the race director, David. Putting 2 massive hills to climb at the end of a race is mean. It's a mean thing to do. And if you want happy finish line photos, I would advise giving us a downhill at the end of the race. So, a couple of climbs to do before the finish. Not crazy climbs, but just enough to just wreck you. So 2 climbs at the end, but I felt pretty good, despite everything. I was like, I'm going to run it in. You got to run it in, right? So I thought I was going to run it in. I felt fine. For some of you who may have seen footage on social media and all sorts, you'll know that the end of the race, I crossed the finish line and I just felt incredibly sick and wretched and was sick a little bit at the end. Made it look like I just pushed through sickness the entire race, I think. The reality, as you've heard, was that I had about an hour and a half of actual sickness and then just trying to prevent it. And then I was pretty good from about a marathon in. But at the end, I really pushed it, wanted to run it in, wanted to just finish strong, give everything I got, and went over the line. About 10 meters from the line, I felt really sick. And hands were on my knees and I was retching at the end. I felt horrendous. Went white as a sheet and tough Tough to finish that way. But I finished. And I have to say, I'm incredibly proud. Just a quick interruption for this episode. Innovate are the sponsors of this episode, and I am a huge fan. If you're looking for some trail shoes, if you're looking for kit that is going to be good in the winter months, Innovate have you sussed. They've got you sorted. If you're looking for a waterproof or any sort of proper gear that deals with the sorts of terrain where Innovate was founded, the Lake District, look no further than Innovate. If you want proper trail shoes that are going to be good in muddy terrain, check out the Mud Talons, check out the Trail Talons. They've got good, decent lugs on them. They have the max versions of some of their shoes that you can get if you want just that little bit more cushioning. So if you're looking for some proper trail shoes that are actually going to grip underfoot, go to Innovate, innovate.com, inov8.com. Use the code RUNNABLE. The code should be working now. If not, try RUNNABLE26 for 15% off. You won't regret it. Innovate have you sorted. inov8.com. Use the code RUNNABLE. So, let's summarize. Let's think about what did I get wrong and what am I proud of. So what did I get wrong? Well, again, I want to stress I was undertrained. I have not been consistently training for this race. As I was supposed to be peaking, I did the opposite. And I dropped to maybe 20 kilometers per week on some rocky terrain in Dahab. I did not properly train for this race. I was doing well when I was in Thailand. I was getting my trail legs on. But as soon as the winter came and I was back in the UK and then I was out in Egypt, I just stopped training, and that is gonna wreak havoc on your performance. You have to prepare your body properly for these ultramarathons. There is no way you're going to be properly prepared if you are not training. The work works. If you take anything from today's episode, if you take anything from my experience, no matter the detail of everything that happened, if you take anything from this, it is that you must be consistent with your training. You must show up. You cannot wing it. You cannot go into these races having not properly trained. They will humble you. They will absolutely destroy you. It is not safe to do so, and I do not condone my actions. However, I think there was good reason for that. We'll come on to that in a second, but I was undertrained. Related to that, stomach training. Your gut needs to be trained. Gut training is really important. Use your fuel when you're training. I was doing this, but not very close to the race. And so I'm very, very adamant now to be taking fuel with me on every run I go on. Anything that is an hour or longer, I'm going to be fueling during my run. If anything shorter, I'm going to fuel before, but I will be fueling all the time, every time. It's essential that you're taking fuel with you. Think about that as an essential piece when you're out doing your long runs, when you're out doing your medium runs, when you're doing anything, frankly. I want you to be thinking about fueling whilst you're training. Training your gut is a massive unlock, and I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to train my gut so I feel confident to be loading my body with the fuel it needs throughout my race, hour by hour by hour. What else did I get wrong? Preparation pre-race. Some of this was in my control. Some of it was not. Frankly, I think most of the preparation pre-race, outside of training, but just I'm talking about the 48 hours before the race, was not completely in my control. I think when you're traveling for these races, it can be especially difficult. I struggled to get a good night's sleep for about 4 days before. So I think that in reality, if I'm doing these races, I need to give more time to acclimatize, give more time to properly prepare, and make sure that I am fueled well, my body feels healthy, I am digesting food, my bowels are moving, I feel good before the race. Preparation is key, and my preparation was poor. Fourth and finally, what did I get wrong? Pacing. You must know what you're currently capable of. This can be difficult. I think if you're going into races often, and you're training often and consistently, you'll know how to pace. If you suddenly dip in your training, but you have a race like this, you just have to ignore the ego. You have to really pace well. I mean, something I did in this race was I just went in thinking I was more capable than I was, or just sort of thinking I could probably pace it just as well. How much fitness have I truly lost? I think I had lost more fitness than I really anticipated. And so my pacing was poor. And you got to know your own body. You got to recognize what you're truly capable of. And ego can be a real stopper for that. So make sure you're not succumbing to your ego and getting your pacing wrong, going out the gates too quick. These races, these ultras are long. You have a lot of time. And so it's better to go real super easy at the start and then lean in throughout the race. Okay, what am I proud of? Let's finish on that. What am I proud of? Well, I'm proud that I pushed on. I'm proud that I kept going. 22 kilometers in, I was being sick. I felt worse than I've ever felt. Not quite worse than I've ever felt. I have actually felt worse during an ultra. During Devil's Gulch, about 70k in, I felt horrendous and managed to pull through. But I did feel very, very bad, and I was being sick, and it was horrible. But I'm proud that I continued. I made safe decisions, but I made determined decisions to persevere. And I am proud of that. No matter what anyone might say about whether it was the right or wrong thing to do, as I have had some people share their opinions, I am proud of myself, and that has value beyond anything else. I stayed positive. There were times where I could have chosen to succumb to my negative thoughts and narrative, but I didn't. I stayed positive. I remained adamant to keep a positive perspective. And I'm extremely proud of that. This is something that I massively value about ultra running. Ultra running trains you to stay positive in situations where it's really difficult to. And if that's not translatable to life, I do not know what is. I finished the race. I finished what I started. I came to do the whole race. I came to finish, and I did that. I got over the finish line. And finally, and this is important, I didn't attach identity to performance. There were times where the narrative would come into my head. I'm exhausted, I'm in a bad place, and I would start thinking about how the performance would determine who I am, would define me as a runner. But I didn't let it do that. I know who I am. I know who I am as a runner. I know what's important to me. And nothing, no performance, can make me feel less than how I feel about myself. Because this is just a hobby. I love it. I care about it. I care about being a good ultra runner. I care about applying everything I learn about proper training to my coaching. I care about all of this stuff. But I do not care about it more than I care about how I see myself, about my personal view of myself. And I will not let running determine how I see myself. So I'm proud I didn't do that. I'm proud that I remained positive, I pushed on, I finished, and I didn't attach my identity to my performance. I believe I am a more grounded runner now. I believe the time off that I had, although it wrecked me for the race, I believe it was necessary. I believe I can get better as an ultra runner and still enjoy these things. I can still remain grounded. I can still know truly who I am and not let the performance determine who I am or how I see myself. And that's what all this stuff is about. It's about showing up in a way that you want to, doing your best, and finding out more about what it really truly means to truly give something everything. That's what this is about. It's about throwing yourself at the races that you do, giving it your all, and smiling and enjoying the process as you do it. It's about gratitude. It's about perspective. And it's about gaining more than it takes from you. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed my little recap of the race. I'll be taking everything I've learned from this race and applying it to my next race. Undefined. I don't know what my next race will be. I was supposed to be doing a race, but now it's called off, and so I'm looking for one here in Asia, potentially in late March. We'll see how that goes, but I'll let you know what my next race is, and we'll be taking all the lessons learned from this race to the next. If you have any more questions, I'm sure you have questions off the back of this. I could talk in much more detail about everything, about nutrition strategy and all this sort of stuff. I wanted to focus on a few things for this episode. But if you have any questions, feel free to submit a question. Listener questions are still happening. If you want to submit a listener question, there is a button in the show notes where you can do so. If you're interested in my one-to-one coaching or even just the Coaching Hub, check the show notes below, and there are links for both of those. I'm taking on new clients for my one-to-one coaching right now as we speak. There are very limited spots for this. I'm only going to be taking on 3 or 4 individuals. So if you're interested, please submit and apply to that. And maybe we can work together for either your first ultra, or maybe you are bumping up to your first 100 miler, or some sort of specific challenge that might be really fun to work with you on. Go check out the show notes for those, for the That's Runnable coaching offerings available. There's a new intake for the Coaching Hub every Monday, every first Monday of every month, sorry. So that'll be coming up in March the 2nd, I believe that is. And you can bag your spot for that now. Thanks to Innovate for sponsoring the episode. Thanks for you for listening. Feel free to follow the podcast if you really enjoyed it. Share it with your mates. I really appreciate the support. Thank you for being here. I love you. Run the runnable. Keep showing up for yourself. And I'll see you next time.